Anthony, how's it going?
Doing well, man. Doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. So today I'm joined by Anthony Enrico. He's the founder and CEO of Lean Scale. If you don't know Lean Scale, I'd love Anthony to introduce himself as well as his company.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me. Lean Scale, we're GTM ops as a service, everything from sales ops, marketing ops, CS ops, and partnerships ops. Really crossing the chasm between planning, strategy, process, and full systems administration and implementation. So we mostly work with Series A to C B2B SaaS and AI companies and have a full team of architects and engineers to help them get their revenue engines as efficient and effective as possible.
So you mentioned two ends of a spectrum that I think are really interesting. One is the strategy and planning, and the next is the operations execution around process development and tooling. Um, I'm curious about, what's the one of the first things that you talk to clients about that is should be their core focus before doing anything else?
Yeah, before we get fancy with anything like implementing AI or workflows or tools to bring in, something we're super passionate about is making sure you have the right growth model and operating plan in place. So most of the companies we work with are freshly funded. They have high expectations of their growth, and they're usually aiming to double or triple from the time that we get in contact with them. So making sure you have a growth model and operating plan that is lined up with everything you need in order to hit that goal. We always start there because I'm sure you've seen it. CRO, CMOs, they sign up for these ridiculous plans and then get completely under resourced, whether on their marketing budget or sales hires or headcount. So, really basing everything in reality. Here's all of your funnel metrics. Here's how much all of this stuff costs. This is what it costs to get an SQL. This is what it costs to have a person manage bookings and manage your renewals. Let's put it on paper and make sure we have the right resources to go after those super ambitious goals.
That's interesting. So let's play this out a little bit. A CRO joins in March or April. The plan was set in December, January. They're signing up for a plan, they're executing a plan that they didn't have any hand in executing. They come in September, October, they don't really know their way around the business or the industry just yet. They're asked to do the bottoms up planning. They have their folks in RevOps building that model. Again, it's a bit of a rush job to be able to build a comprehensive plan, which makes sense. When we think about planning, I love the idea of pipeline modeling. And there are heuristics out there. Folks say 3x, 4x, coverage. Another one is take the inversion of your win rate. It's not exact science, but I'm curious about how you think about advising folks around looking at pipeline coverage and pipeline generation and walking them through that.
Yeah, my favorite is inversion of the win rate. So if you know, hey, once it gets to an SQL stage, we convert 20% after that. And I would look at trends. Sometimes it's, pretty um pretty different depending on what their typical win rates are. Figure out a way to get an average, median, whatever makes sense. And then in that case, if it's 20%, then yeah, we need a 5x coverage rate to make sure that we're able to hit this. Now, usually that part is okay for people to wrap their heads around. I don't know why, but the biggest hangup in every single growth model or growth plan that we ever step into, literally every single time, is the timing of when to build the pipeline. So they'll be like, great, we need 5x coverage. So I'm going to take my quota or what I think we need to close in Q1, multiply it by five. That's how much pipeline we need. Yes, maybe if you have a short sales cycle, but a lot of companies have 6, 9 months, sometimes 12-month sales cycles. So you need to be building that pipeline way earlier and then just making sure those goals are set up to the timing of when you need the pipeline. Super important. That's the number one hang up with every growth model we do.
So I talk to folks. It's okay. Tell me about tell me how long it takes to have a baby in your world, right? Are you a possum where you have a 12 or 13 day pregnancy? It's a SMB sales cycle, right? Or are you talking about a 9 month, 12-month sales cycle, larger mammals in the animal kingdom. Um, and so maybe even the species that I'm a part of. And so when we think about this, okay, you want to win a deal in this specific quarter, You need to have the beginnings of that deal come, when your sales cycle says it's supposed to come. You might have some distribution, obviously. Some deals close fast. Some long tail deals close longer. And yeah, you can create a distribution. Maybe you get fancy with a Monte Carlo simulation, but most teams don't do something crazy like that. You're just using a benchmark, right? What's your average? What's your median sales cycle? And then you work backwards. We need to land this many planes on tarmac, so we need to have this many planes in the air from this distance, this at this point in time. And then from there, you can work backwards to sales activity, which I think is a funny thing to work on. When you think about targeting, because you can't just close the deals and have meetings. You have to have meetings with the right folks. So thinking about identifying your target customers, or even better, your ideal customer profile. How does lean scale, and how do you specifically think about that?
I think it's one of the most important things to get really locked in. And as I move into this part of the conversation, also looking at your rates by different segments. A lot of times people will blend them all up. You may have an enterprise segment, maybe a strategics, like hyper enterprise, and then you have that high velocity segment. So it's really important to look at it. And your ICPs and personas are likely different for all those segments as well. But when we're looking at the efficiency of a go to market engine, and when I think efficiency, I think you're converting at a high win rate, you're shortening that sales cycle, and you're holding on to that customer as long as possible and increasing LTV. There's nothing more impactful than focusing your resources on higher propensity to buy ICPs and getting your personas absolutely dialed in. It may feel like you're leaving potential opportunities on the table if you're not going into, we usually tier them in 4 tiers. Tier one, great. Tier two, good. Tier three, potential. Tier four, do not market to them. Um, it may feel like you have so much opportunity in this tier two or tier three, but you're really just wasting noise. And even if you do close them, usually they don't have as strong of LTV. So there's nothing, and it's not super fancy. You just need to spend some time on it and really think deeply about it. Um, but there's nothing more impactful than doing that. To give some numbers, we just released a benchmark report with Fullcast and EBSTA. And for accounts that are in your tier one ICP, it has a 5x higher efficiency than tiers below that. So when you add up, you're converting them at a higher rate, meaning you're spending less calories on your sales resources, you're closing them quicker, revenue's coming in the door faster, and they're staying on longer. It's 5 times more efficient to focus on those accounts than anyone else.
So it's for me, it's thinking about the calories you expend and and what you get out of it, right? That lasts longer. It's not just the win rate, but it's also how long they last with you. I have this 2x2 that I once used for a company that had quite a bit of operating history, meaning they've been around for quite a long time. And the 2x2 is the NRR, the net recurring revenue, which can go over one, which is what you want. You want over one, because upsells, downsells, plus expansions, plus churn, minus churn should be greater than one. And then the other axis is the win rate. And so the 2x2 tells you, okay, well, if we win at a high clip and they stay around for a long time, you have a high NRR. If you have a high win rate but they churn more often than not, is it really worth the pursuit to go after those? And then there's the low win rate, low NRR. Those are like the do not fly zones. Um, and then you can have different strategies to move to different quadrants, right? One of them is tighten up your product offering, right? Or your time to value, and maybe you can save and improve that LTV for that particular segment. Maybe folks are buying your product because you're a workaround. You're a workaround versus whatever is core in their industry. And it's an opportunity for your product team to say, hey, look, there's an opportunity to seize the high ground in that specific segment. So I think that's really interesting. Now, when I think about ideal customer profile, how do you go about doing that? Are you looking at the data, or are you actually interviewing the customers, right? One's quantitative and one's qualitative. Like, what's a combination or a preferred approach between those two ends of the spectrum?
Yeah, I think like most things in business in general, you're going to have to do both. You take some quantitative data to give you some insights. A lot of companies we work with, they may not have a ton of years of data and maybe they even pivoted, so the data might not be super relevant. So you don't always have a ton of objective stuff to work with. So you may have to go a little qualitative. Um, but I do both regardless. And I can give you maybe Lean Scale's ICP as an example. We think of like ICP, I think these the firmographic component of it, and then we think of personas. So for us, we're looking for Series A, Series B companies. Those are like tier one fits. Tier two would be Series C. Usually, sometimes they have ops figured out a little bit by then. We're not solving this like unreal, visceral pain that a Series B company might have that has no rev ops. Um, and then we're looking for companies that are in B2B SaaS or AI. They're in North America. Preferably in the US, we have some Canadian accounts, but they're a little bit more price sensitive. So if we can take US accounts. And then the other thing that's interesting, so that's kind of firmographically, and usually people kind of stop there. They're like, okay, that's who we're targeting. On the persona side, I had a really strong hypothesis that head of RevOps would be a good fit for us to go target. Um, I built Lean Scale kind of in the image of what I would want out of an agency focused on this, and I was ahead of RevOps 3 times. But what I found in our data, a lot of the companies where they had a head of RevOps, the churn was a lot higher, the conversion was more difficult. They didn't have as much budget to increase the annual contract value of our engagement. So, but what we did find was when we're working directly with the CRO, it closes quicker, it's a bigger engagement. And especially, this was an interesting nuance, especially with the CRO, where this is their third or more time as a CRO. So that's a nugget that came out of the data. It took a few years to see that, but when they've done it a few times before, they already know the pain. They already know what's going to happen. They're not threatened by bringing in an agency. They don't think it takes away any of the value that they're bringing, and they just want a solution done quickly. And they know they're on the shot clock of 18 months to figure out how to grow this company or not. So anyway, a little bit of a long answer, but I think that's our approach and then the level of depth that you need to take. Because then once you have that, your messaging is going to look a lot different. If I'm putting stuff out to experienced CROs, that's different messaging than heads of RevOps or people doing RevOps for the first time.
So right on. I like the shot clock, by the way. I think the pitch clock in baseball is, I think, actually 18 seconds. Maybe I think that would be maybe a great analogy for it. But let's confirm that. But the addressable market is the firmographic, right? So you have your TAM, which is like all companies who could use B2B, who are B2B in AI, and then B2B SaaS, sorry. And then you have your SAM, which is like Series A, B, C. Then you have your SOM, which is like companies who actually have CROs, multiple time CROs, who know exactly what they're getting into, have a prescription on what the game plan is, and they're willing to go out and be a strong buyer for consulting services. Um, okay, so when we think about planning, we talked about deal velocity, pipeline models. I want to bring up the word that everyone brings up, which is AI. I'm gonna gauge your reaction on this. One conversation I had recently was, well, why do we have to have a 3-to-1 SDR to AE ratio? Sorry, AE to SDR ratio. If we're going to bring in this go-to-market engineer, that person is going to be like the puppet master to the whole SDR team. Couldn't we just operate with one GTME and then slowly shrink the size of the SDR team? And then same thing on the sales manager to the AE role. Are you seeing that? Is that real to you?
We're definitely seeing efficiencies. I wouldn't say it's completely gutting SDR teams, and there are a lot of SDR teams that are performing at a really high level. And when you can start to see, hey, when I stack another SDR in here, I get X amount more pipeline, and then the efficiency ratio is still okay with me. It's the same with reps and AEs. Like I don't think it's we need to have less SDRs. You're just saying, hey, each SDR can now produce 50% more than before. In some cases, if you have enough market, it may mean go get more SDRs because they're even more efficient than what they were a year or 2 years ago. So I think if you look at it kind of at the micro level, just like how efficient can I make an SDR? And if you can make them really efficient, then volume, you may want more. I also think not I think, this is what we're seeing. It's getting really, really difficult to stand out. Every single person has personalized outreach, intent signals. It's become affordable, it's democratized. Everybody has easy access to intent and using that intent to personalize the messages. So I do think there's actually a level of creativity and humanness that is necessary in order to stand out now, where it's pretty easy to see the AI emails and AI LinkedIn messages that are hitting my inbox 10,000 times a day. But people who are going the extra mile to build a relationship with me, that that's really tough to beat. I don't think you're going to have the GTM engineer orchestrator that's going to win against authentic relationships. But I do think someone who getting your team out there and then empowered with these new style of workflows is going to make them more efficient and more productive.
I think that's interesting. There's a trade-off there, right? The GTME can operate at much higher numbers, right? While I think there's a scale limiter to actual authentic in-person style relationships. And so I would be very curious. Maybe you pick your poison depending on the conditions of the particular market you're pursuing. So I think we're rebounding from COVID, and a lot of folks love in person, and I experienced it myself going to conferences. There's a different energy in the air than there was before. And now with AI, it's kind of an interesting convergence of different themes there. So I've learned a lot from you as well over the years. Your team has invested quite a strong presence on YouTube. I'd love to go a little bit more about like how you went about building up your channel. I think, and tell me a little bit about your current following.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Well, it's been a really good investment for us. Definitely has taken some time. So we've been investing into the channel for a few years. Um, and a lot of it started with me thinking how I was going to enable the team and then also attract new talent to come to Lean Scale. So it started off purely as education. I was thinking, how can we take what we're learning from engagements we're doing in the field, put them into video content, and then share it with people who are doing RevOps for the first time, or uh, get new members of my team trained up. So that was kind of the genesis of the YouTube channel. Then it really transformed into quite a few things. I think a lot of people were interested in the educational content. Then we had a lot of people asking if we were doing podcasts or bringing on guests. So it was an opportunity for us to engage in the community by investing more into the podcast segment of our channel. And then the other one is, I don't know about you. I mean, I'm in this all day, every single day. I have an entire team of people where this is all we do. And I still find it so difficult to keep up with new GTM tech. Like every single day, there's a new tool. Every single day, I feel like I'm behind. I was on site we have video content on Clay, and I was on site with their team, and they just launched a bunch of stuff that makes all of our content completely irrelevant. Like it's very, very difficult to stay up to speed. So we've also invested a lot into a segment where we're bringing on the latest GTM tech to demo and share what they're building. So that way, people in the community can really get a sense of what's out there and what just might be noise and something that'd be interesting for them to implement.
It almost makes me wonder, there should be like a portal to knowledge share new documentation from the vendors that are out there in the marketplace so that agencies like yourself could actually stay up in the know. Yeah, I personally not on top of all the tech. There's just way too much, right? I lean on my previous experience with tools, and then try to figure out, okay, well, there's an older category of tool that I used to love. Is there a newer, better way of doing it? And I might pick one or two to study. But again, it's hard. It's just impossible to know everything. But that is that I think the presence of being a revenue operator, you're just never going to be able to stay on top of it. You're just doing the best you can to solve the capabilities. Okay, so you talked about YouTube. I really love that. You talked about some of the tooling. When I think about tooling, and I find that some folks are tribal around specific tools. How do you think about it for your customers?
I mean, I don't want to get fully married to anyone in this space because every couple months there's a brand new tool of doing something in a new way that I never even thought of. So we're agnostic. We have some favorites, and I'm happy to share what our favorites are today. Um, and they've been really, really good partners for us, and I think we're helping their customers out a ton as well. But I think there's just so much change, and to fully go in on one platform. Maybe you still have some juice left if you're like all in on Salesforce or HubSpot, just because they're pretty ubiquitous. But outside of that, I mean, there are so many new tools that are just popping up every single day. So we really just take the approach: what are our customers trying to solve? What's the best and latest technology on the market to solve that problem? Let's go bring that in. And a lot of times our customers actually challenge us. They're demoing a tool or they want to implement a tool, and then we say we're not shy about implementing new things. So it's not like, hey, if it's not on the roster, we're not managing it. We'll say if you want to implement it, we'll be honest and let you know we haven't done it, but if you want us to work on it, we will. And that is a good organic way for us to get introduced to new technology as well.
I love that. One last question for you. I always ask this for all the guests. What's one piece of advice that you'd like to leave for the go-to-market community?
I'm going to go back to something I was talking about earlier. Get your ICP and personas dialed in at the deepest level possible because you're going to need to do that in order to stand out with messaging that matters, in order to stand out with getting into those communities of where those people are, and then making sure that your product and offering is solving real problems. So I think the more time you spend on your ICP and personas, the better, more efficient GTM engine you'll have.
And lastly, where can folks learn more about you as well as LeanScale?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Anthony Enrico. I think there's only a couple. I'm the only one with RevOps and GTM stuff all over his profile. You can find us at leanscale.team. And you can also find us on YouTube, just at LeanScale. So those are the best ways to get in touch with us. And if anybody wants any resources or wants a sounding board, we'd love to connect.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Anthony.
Thank you, Jeff.